The massive warship called Eternal Dominion floated in the darkness of space above a burning world. The planet below had been called Nexus 7 by the people who lived there. Now it belonged to the Zorvani Empire. Smoke rose from its cities. Its defenders were dead or captured. Another world had fallen to the most powerful military force in 3 galaxies. Deep inside the warship, in the cold metal halls of the detention block, General Keth Varn walked slowly between rows of prison cells. His 4 eyes moved left and right, studying the captured soldiers behind energy barriers. He was 9 feet tall, covered in natural armor that looked like black stone. His arms ended in claws that could cut through metal. He had commanded armies for over 100 years and had never lost a war. The Zorvani were born to conquer. Their bodies were weapons. Their minds were sharp. They believed that the universe belonged to the strong, and no species was stronger than them. They had proven this truth on 47 different worlds against dozens of different species. The weak existed only to serve the strong. This was the natural order of things. Commander Xylath walked beside the general. She was younger than him, but she had proven herself in many battles. She carried a data tablet that held information about all the prisoners. "We captured over 300 enemy soldiers," she reported. "Mostly Krellians and Borvacs, a few other species mixed in. All standard coalition forces." Keth Varn made a clicking sound with his mandibles. The Galactic Coalition was an alliance of weaker species who joined together to resist the Zorvani Empire. They had some good warriors, but they could not match Zorvani power. They never could. The general stopped walking. He had noticed something strange. In a small cell at the end of the row, a single prisoner sat alone. This creature was different from all the others. It was small, much too small. Where the Krellian warriors stood 7 feet tall and the Borvac soldiers were built like mountains of muscle, this thing was barely 6 feet. It had soft pink skin with no armor at all, no claws, no fangs, no spikes, nothing. The creature wore a torn gray uniform. A bloody bandage was wrapped around its middle. It sat on the floor with its back against the wall, breathing slowly, obviously in pain. "What is this?" Keth Varn pointed at the cell with one clawed hand. Xylath checked her tablet. "Unknown species, General. We have no record of them in our databases. The capture team found him alone in Sector 7. "Alone? This little thing was alone in a war zone?" "Yes, General. And there is something else." Xylath hesitated before continuing. "The soldiers who captured him reported finding 17 dead Zorvani around his position." Keth Varn turned all 4 of his eyes toward his commander. 17? This creature killed 17 of my warriors?" "That is what the report says." The general let out a harsh laugh. The sound echoed through the detention block. Several other prisoners looked up in fear, but the small creature in the cell did not react. It simply continued to sit there, breathing slowly, watching them with tired eyes. "Impossible!" Keth Varn declared loudly. He wanted everyone to hear him. He wanted the creature to hear him. "Look at it, Commander. It has nothing. No weapons built into its body, no armor, no strength that I can see. It is bleeding from a wound that a Zorvani child would ignore. How could this weak, soft, fragile thing kill 17 trained soldiers?" He pressed one claw against the energy barrier that kept the prisoner contained. The barrier buzzed with power. There must be an error in the report. Someone made a mistake. Perhaps this creature was hiding while real warriors did the fighting. Perhaps it simply found the bodies afterward. The prisoner lifted its head. Its eyes were a strange color, blue like certain gases that burned in space. Despite its wounds, despite its obvious exhaustion, those eyes held no fear. They held something else, something that Keth Varn did not recognize. "Tell me, little thing," the general said, speaking slowly in the universal trade language. He wanted to make sure the creature understood every word. "What are you? What species produces something so small and weak and useless?" The creature's dry lips moved. When it spoke, its voice was quiet but steady. "Human," it said. "I'm human." The word meant nothing to Keth Varn. He had conquered dozens of species, and he had never heard this name before. Humans. They were obviously new to space travel. They had probably never faced a real enemy before. They had certainly never faced the Zorvani. "Human," the general repeated, making the word sound like an insult. "A species I have never heard of. That tells me everything I need to know. You are nobody. You are nothing. Your people are so weak and unimportant that the galaxy does not even know you exist." The human did not argue. He did not beg. He did not cry or scream or plead for his life like so many prisoners did when they faced Zorvani judgment. He simply watched the general with those strange blue eyes. This annoyed Keith Varn more than any insult could have. He was used to fear. He enjoyed fear. It was proper for the weak to fear the strong. But this creature showed him nothing. Just calm, steady observation, like a scientist studying an interesting insect. "What is your name, human? What is your rank?" "Private Daniel Grant," the human answered. "Serial number 77429. A private, the lowest rank, not even an officer, not even someone important. Keth Varn turned away from the cell. "This creature is worthless. It has no information we need. It has no value as a hostage. Dispose of it with the other weak prisoners." "General," Xylath spoke carefully, "perhaps we should learn more about this species first. If there are others like him..." "Others like him? Look at him, Commander. If all humans are like this, they pose no threat to us. They are prey animals pretending to be predators. Their entire species is probably hiding on some forgotten rock, hoping the universe never notices them." Xylath said nothing, but she made a note on her tablet. Something about this situation felt wrong to her. The capture report was very specific. 17 dead Zorvani, 1 living human. Those facts did not match what she was seeing. In his cell, Daniel Grant watched the 2 aliens walk away. His wound burned with every breath. He had not eaten in 3 days. He had not slept in 4. His body was failing, and he knew it. But he also knew something the Zorvani did not. They had made a mistake. Somewhere out in the darkness between stars, his people would be looking for him. Humans did not forget their own. Humans did not abandon their own. Every soldier knew this from their first day of training. It was not just a policy. It was a promise. No matter where you are, no matter how bad things get, we will come for you. Daniel closed his eyes and waited. Help was coming. The alarm started screaming 3 hours after General Keth Varn returned to his command center. The sound cut through the quiet hum of the ship like a knife. Officers rushed to their stations. Screens lit up with new information. Something was happening at the edge of the star system. Keth Varn settled into his command throne, a massive chair built from the bones of conquered enemies. He was not worried. His fleet numbered 300 warships. Each one was a floating fortress filled with weapons and warriors. Nothing in this part of the galaxy could threaten such power. "Report!" he commanded. A young officer studied his screen with all 4 eyes. "Single contact, General. 1 ship has just come out of hyperspace. It is approaching our position." "1 ship?" Keth Varn made an amused clicking sound. "The Coalition sends 1 ship against my entire fleet. They have finally lost their minds." "General, the ship does not match any Coalition design we have on record. It is transmitting an identification signal. The vessel is called USS Relentless. It claims to be from something called the United Nations Space Command." "United Nations Space Command," Xylath repeated slowly. She had moved to a data station and was searching for information. That designation appears in some captured Coalition files. It is a human military organization. Human. Kethvarn sat forward in his throne. The same species as our pathetic prisoner? Yes, General. Through the main viewport, the approaching ship became visible against the stars. It was small compared to Zorvani warships, sleek and angular, painted in dark colors that made it hard to see. It moved with confidence, not slowing down, not changing course. It came directly toward the fleet like it had no fear at all. They are hailing us, General. Put them on the main display. The screen flickered, and a human face appeared. It was a female of their species. She had dark hair pulled back tightly and eyes the color of wet earth. She wore a crisp uniform with metal symbols on her collar. Her face showed no expression at all, not fear, not anger, not anything. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear. This is Captain Lisa Morgan of the USS Relentless to Zorvani Fleet. You are holding a human prisoner. You will release him immediately and withdraw from this system. This is your only warning. Silence filled the command center. Every Zorvani officer stopped what they were doing. They stared at the screen in disbelief. Then, one by one, they began to laugh. Kethvarn laughed loudest of all. One tiny ship makes demands of the Zorvani Third Fleet. Your species is not just weak, human. You are also stupid. Captain Morgan did not react to the laughter. Her expression remained as still as stone. You have captured one of my people. Return him unharmed and you may leave. Refuse, and there will be consequences. Consequences? Kethvarn rose from his throne. He walked closer to the display, letting his full height show. Let me show you what consequences look like, human. Let me teach your little ship what happens to species that threaten the Zorvani Empire. He turned to his weapons officer. Send 20 cruisers. Destroy that ship. Make it slow. Make it painful. I want her to understand her mistake before she dies. The weapons officer obeyed immediately. 20 massive cruisers broke away from the main fleet and moved toward the Relentless. Each cruiser was 10 times larger than the human ship. Each one carried enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Together, they had enough firepower to burn a continent. The Relentless did not turn. It did not run. Instead, it accelerated directly toward the attacking cruisers. They're attacking. Xylath's voice held a strange note. 1 ship against 20? They are committing suicide, Kethvarn said. Watch and learn, Commander. This is what happens to weak species who forget their place. The first cruiser opened fire. Bright plasma bursts shot through space toward the human ship. The shots should have hit. They should have torn through that small hull and ended this foolishness in seconds. They missed. The Relentless moved in ways that seemed impossible. It twisted and turned between the plasma bursts like water flowing around rocks. The ship should have torn itself apart with such movements. The crew inside should have been crushed by the forces. But it kept moving, kept dodging, kept coming. Then it fired back. A single missile launched from the human ship. It flew straight and true, crossing the distance to the lead cruiser in heartbeats. The cruiser's shields activated. Those shields were designed to stop sustained bombardment from capital ships. They were the strongest defensive technology the Zorvani had ever built. The missile went through them like they were not there. The cruiser exploded, not slowly, not gradually. One moment it existed. The next moment it was an expanding cloud of fire and debris. Over 3,000 Zorvani soldiers died in that single instant. Before the debris finished spreading, the Relentless had already destroyed 2 more cruisers. The command center went silent. No more laughter, no more clicking of mandibles, just silence and the growing smell of fear. How? Kethvarn could not finish the question. His mind could not understand what he was seeing. The Relentless danced through the battle like a creature born for killing. It was everywhere at once. It fired and ships died. It dodged and return fire hit nothing but empty space. It moved faster than any ship should move. It hit harder than any ship that size could possibly hit. 4 minutes. That was how long the battle lasted. In 4 minutes, 20 Zorvani cruisers were reduced to floating wreckage. Over 60,000 soldiers were dead. The Relentless emerged from the destruction without a scratch. It resumed its course toward the main fleet, moving as calmly as if nothing had happened. Captain Morgan's face appeared on the display again. Her expression had not changed at all. "That was your warning," she said. "Return our soldier." Keth Varn stared at the screen. He stared at the debris field that had been 20 of his ships. He tried to understand what had just happened and found that he could not. "General," Xylath said quietly, "I found more information about humans in the Coalition databases. There are warnings. Many warnings." "Warnings?" "Yes, General. The Coalition does not fight humans. No one fights humans. There is a reason for this." Through the viewport, the Relentless continued its approach, small, sleek, deadly beyond measure, and it had come for one prisoner, one wounded soldier, one single human that Keth Varn had dismissed as weak and worthless. For the first time in over 100 years, General Keth Varn felt something he had almost forgotten existed. Fear. General Keth Varn stood in the observation gallery of his flagship, watching the battle through reinforced viewports. Outside, in the cold darkness of space, his fleet was dying. He had sent everything against the human ship. 279 warships attacked the Relentless from all sides. They poured fire at it without stopping. Plasma bursts, missiles, energy beams, enough firepower to crack a planet in half. It was not enough. The Relentless continued to fight. It had taken damage now. Black marks scarred its hull. One engine trailed smoke, but it kept moving, kept killing, kept surviving. Every shot it fired found its target. Every maneuver it made was perfect. It was like fighting smoke, like trying to catch water with bare hands. More than 60 ships were gone now. 60 warships, each one crewed by thousands of soldiers. All destroyed by something barely larger than a transport shuttle. Commander Xylath found the general standing alone, watching the destruction through the viewport. She had spent the last hour gathering every piece of information she could find about humans. What she had learned kept her awake, even though her body screamed for rest. "General," she said, "you need to see this." Keth Varn did not turn around. "I am busy, Commander. I am watching my fleet die." "That is why you need to see this. I found the Coalition data on humans. I know why this is happening. I know what they are." Slowly, the general turned to face her. In his 100 years of military service, Xylath had never seen him look so old. The arrogance was gone from his 4 eyes. Something else had taken its place. "Speak," he said. Xylath activated her tablet. Data filled the screen. Text in dozens of languages, images, videos, tactical reports. All of it painted a picture that made her sick with fear. "Humans evolved on a death world," she began. "Their home planet is called Earth. It should not support intelligent life. The temperature changes are extreme. The weather is violent. The planet is filled with predators, poisons, diseases, and natural disasters. Their own star bombards them with radiation that causes genetic damage. Many species claim harsh origins," Keth Varn said, but his voice lacked its usual strength. "Not like this." Xylath pulled up biological data. "Look at their bodies, General. They have no armor, no claws, no natural weapons, but they did not need them. They developed a different kind of strength." She pointed to a diagram of human anatomy. "Their bodies are built for endurance. They cannot run as fast as many predators, but they can run for longer. On their world, they hunted by chasing prey, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. They would follow an animal for days if needed. Days, without stopping." Keth Varn said nothing. "Their healing abilities are remarkable. They can survive injuries that would kill any Zorvani. Broken bones mend themselves. Damaged organs continue working. They can lose large amounts of blood and still keep fighting. I read one report of a human soldier who continued combat operations for 3 days with a piece of metal stuck in his chest. 3 days, General. He only stopped when his heart stopped. Through the viewport, another Zorvani ship exploded in silence. But their physical abilities are not what makes them dangerous, Xylath continued. It is their minds, the way they think, the way they connect with each other. She pulled up more data. Humans form bonds, deep bonds, unbreakable bonds. Not just with family, but with friends, with strangers, even with other species. When one human is threatened, other humans will do anything to protect them. They will risk everything. They will sacrifice everything. They cannot help it. It is built into their nature. That sounds like weakness, Keth Varn said. That is what I thought too. But look at what is happening outside this window, General. One human was captured. One wounded soldier with no special rank or importance. And what did humanity do? They sent a warship. They sent their best warriors. They crossed the galaxy to get him back. They are fighting our entire fleet for one person. The general looked at the battle. The Relentless was still out there, still fighting, still refusing to die. Among humans, no one is unimportant, Xylath said. Every life has value. Every person matters. They have a saying, no one left behind. It is not just words to them. It is a promise. It is a law of their nature. They are insane, Keth Varn whispered. They are terrifying. Xylath lowered her tablet. I found records of human military history in the Coalition files. Humans have fought wars against each other for thousands of years. They developed weapons capable of destroying their own world. Nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, biological weapons. They came close to ending their own species many times. And they survived? They always survive. They learn from every disaster. They adapt to every threat. They take their aggression, their loyalty, their endless stubbornness, and they turn it into strength. When they finally reached the stars, they were already the most dangerous species their world had ever produced. Keth Varn was quiet for a long moment. Outside, the battle continued. His ships kept dying. The human ship kept fighting. The Coalition files contain warnings, Xylath said. Clear warnings. Do not attack humans. Do not harm humans. Do not give them a reason to notice you. Because once humans decide you are their enemy, they never stop. They never forget. They never forgive. They will chase you across the galaxy. They will hunt you for generations. They will burn everything you have ever built. Why? The general asked. Why would they do this? Because that is who they are. They protect their own. They avenge their dead. It is not strategy. It is not policy. It is instinct. It is their very nature. The general turned back to the viewport. As he watched, another of his ships died in a flash of light. I dismissed that prisoner as weak, he said quietly. I called his species pathetic, worthless. I said he was nobody. You were wrong, Xylath said. I was wrong. Keth Varn closed all 4 of his eyes. That one human soldier. How did we capture him again? He was found alone after 4 days of combat, wounded, exhausted, surrounded by 17 dead Zorvani. 4 days, alone, against our forces. The general opened his eyes. And I thought he was weak. Humans do not measure strength the way we do, Xylath said. They do not need armor or claws or size. Their strength comes from something else, something we do not understand, something we cannot fight. Through the viewport, the Relentless continued its deadly dance. And somewhere in the detention block below, a human named Daniel Grant waited for his people to come. They were coming. Nothing in the universe could stop them. The battle had lasted 6 hours. General Keth Varn sat in his command throne, surrounded by chaos. Officers rushed between stations. Alarms screamed warnings that no one had time to silence. The smell of fear filled the air like poison gas. Every Zorvani could sense it. Every Zorvani knew they were losing. 93 warships drifted dead in space, 93 vessels, each one a floating fortress, reduced to twisted metal and frozen bodies. The debris field stretched across thousands of miles, a graveyard of Zorvani pride. The Relentless was still out there. It had taken heavy damage. Its hull was scarred black in a dozen places. 2 of its engines were destroyed. It moved slower now, wounded like a predator that had fought too hard for too long. But it kept fighting. It would not stop. It could not stop. A tactical officer turned from his station. His voice was barely a whisper. "General, we have new contacts. Hyperspace signatures at the edge of the system." Keth Varn did not react. He already knew what was coming. 12 vessels, the officer continued. All human. They match the design of the Relentless. 12 more ships. 12 ships like the one that had destroyed 93 of his best warships. Against his damaged, demoralized fleet, they would be unstoppable. The main display flickered. Captain Morgan's face appeared again. She looked exactly the same as she had 6 hours ago. Calm, controlled, unbreakable. "General Keth Varn," she said, "the 2nd and 5th human response groups have arrived. We now have enough force to destroy your entire fleet, but I am offering you one final chance." Keth Varn forced himself to sit straight in his throne. He would not show weakness, even now. "Speak. Return Private Daniel Grant to us. He will be transported to our vessel unharmed. In exchange, you and your remaining ships may leave this system. No more blood needs to be spilled today." "And if I refuse?" Morgan's eyes hardened. They became cold like the space between stars. "Then not one of your vessels will survive. I have lost many good people today, General. Soldiers with families, soldiers with dreams, soldiers whose names I will remember for the rest of my life. I would very much like to destroy every ship in your fleet for that." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But I was not sent here to win a battle. I was sent here to bring my soldier home. Give him back, and we are done. Force me to come get him, and I will. And your empire will learn what it means to make an enemy of humanity." "You threaten us?" Keth Varn stood from his throne. "You threaten the Zorvani Empire?" "I make promises," Morgan said. "Humans do not bluff. We say what we mean. We do what we say. Your fleet is broken, General. Your ships are scattered. Your warriors are afraid. You have already lost. The only question is how many more of your people will die before you accept that." The transmission ended. The display went dark. Keth Varn stood alone in the middle of his command center. Around him, officers waited for orders. No one spoke. No one moved. They all knew that the next words from their general would decide whether they lived or died. Commander Zalath approached slowly. "General, we cannot win this fight. The Third Fleet has never retreated. The Third Fleet has never faced humans." Zalath kept her voice low, meant only for his ears. "If we continue, we will be destroyed. All of us, every ship, every soldier, everything we have worked for will be gone. And for what? For pride. Pride is all we have left." "No." Zalath shook her head. "We have our lives. We have our future. We can retreat today and rebuild tomorrow. Or we can die here, and the Zorvani Empire will lose one of its greatest fleets." In the detention block, far below the command center, Daniel Grant sat in a holding area near the shuttle bay. 4 Zorvani guards surrounded him, their weapons pointed at his chest. They kept their distance from him now. They had heard the reports. They had seen the battle data. They knew what one human soldier had done, and they knew what human ships had done. Daniel looked at them without anger. He could see the fear in their 4-eyed faces. He could smell it in the air. "Just let me go," he said quietly. "No one else needs to die today." "Quiet, human," one guard snarled. But there was no strength in his voice. Only fear. Only doubt. The ship's speakers crackled. General Keth Varn's voice filled the room. It sounded tired. It sounded old. "Prepare the prisoner for transfer. Shuttle Bay 4, immediately." The guards looked at each other. Then they looked at Daniel. One of them lowered his weapon first, then another, then all of them. "Move, human," the lead guard said. "Your people are waiting." Daniel stood slowly. His wound burned with every movement. His body was weak from hunger and exhaustion, but he felt stronger than he had in days. Help had come, just like he knew it would. In the command center, Keth Varn watched a small shuttle launch from his ship. It carried one passenger, one human, one wounded soldier who had caused more damage to the Zorvani Empire than any army. "All ships, withdraw," the general commanded. His voice was flat, empty of emotion. "Set course for home space. Best speed." No one argued. No one questioned. The remaining ships of the Third Fleet began to move, limping toward the hyperspace boundary like wounded animals fleeing a predator. Captain Morgan watched them go from the bridge of the Relentless. Her first officer, a man named Kevin Blake, stood beside her. "They're retreating," he said. "All of them." "Good." Morgan's expression did not change. "Track that shuttle. Make sure Private Grant reaches us safely." "What about their fleet? We could pursue them. Finish them off." Morgan shook her head. "We came here to rescue one of our own, not to start a war. Let them go. Let them tell their empire what happened here. Let them spread the word." "What word?" Morgan turned to look at her first officer. For just a moment, something showed in her eyes. Not anger, not pride, something deeper, something ancient. That humans protect their own. That humans never give up. That humans are not a species to be conquered. She looked back at the viewport. At the retreating enemy ships. At the debris of battle floating in the darkness. Let them remember. Let them all remember. The shuttle carrying Daniel Grant crossed the final distance between the warship and the Relentless. As it approached the landing bay, every human on the ship stopped what they were doing. They stood at their stations, at their posts, in their quarters. They waited. One of their own was coming home. The shuttle drifted through a field of broken ships. Daniel Grant sat alone in the passenger compartment, looking through the small window at what remained of the Zorvani fleet. Twisted metal floated past. Frozen bodies tumbled in the darkness. The debris stretched on, a graveyard of alien pride scattered across the stars. All of this for him, all of this death, all of this destruction, all of this war. For one wounded soldier from Texas who had never thought he was anyone special. The shuttle pilot was a young Zorvani officer who had not spoken a single word during the entire flight. He kept his four eyes forward, his claws tight on the controls, his fear written in every movement of his body. He wanted this to be over. He wanted to be far away from these humans and their impossible ships and their terrifying loyalty. When the Relentless came into view through the window, Daniel felt his heart beat faster. The ship was damaged. Scorch marks covered its hull like black wounds. One section was open to space, sealed off by emergency barriers. The engines flickered with unstable light. But it was beautiful. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. The shuttle entered the landing bay. As soon as it touched down, Daniel heard the sounds of pressurization, of hatches opening, of boots on metal floors. The passenger door slid open, and he stepped out into the light. Two lines of crew members stood at attention along the landing bay. They were exhausted. Some had bandages on their arms and faces. Some had bloodstains on their uniforms. They had fought for 6 hours without rest, without hope, without knowing if they would survive. But they stood straight. They stood tall. They saluted as Daniel walked between them. He did not understand at first. He was a private, the lowest rank, the most ordinary soldier in the entire fleet. He had no medals, no special training, no important family. He was nobody. But these people had come for him anyway. At the end of the line, a woman waited. Captain Lisa Morgan. Her uniform was as crisp as if the battle had never happened. Her dark eyes studied Daniel's face, taking in his wounds, his exhaustion, his confusion. "Private Grant," she said. Her voice was warm beneath its strength. "Welcome home." Daniel opened his mouth to speak, but the words caught in his throat. He had held himself together for so long, 4 days alone in enemy territory, 3 days as a prisoner. The fear, the pain, the uncertainty, all of it locked away inside because he had no choice. Because soldiers did not break. Because giving up was not an option. But now, standing on the deck of a human ship, surrounded by his people, the walls inside him cracked. "Captain," he managed to say, "all of this was for me? All these people risked their lives for me?" Morgan looked at him with eyes that had seen too many battles. Too many losses, too many young soldiers just like him. "That is what we do," she said. "We do not leave our people behind, ever. No matter the cost, no matter the risk. You are one of us, Private Grant. That means something. That means everything." Daniel's eyes burned with tears he refused to let fall. "I'm just a private. I'm nobody important." "Every human is important." Morgan placed a hand on his shoulder. "Every single one. That is what makes us who we are. That is what makes us strong." She turned him gently toward a medical team waiting nearby. "Now get to medical. That wound needs proper treatment. That is an order." As Daniel was led away, Morgan returned to the bridge. Through the viewports, she could see the Zorvani fleet disappearing into the distance, broken ships limping toward the hyperspace boundary, fleeing from the nightmare they had awakened. Lieutenant Commander Blake stood at his station, monitoring the enemy withdrawal. "The last of them just jumped to hyperspace," he reported. "They are gone." Good. Morgan settled into her command chair. The leather was worn from years of use, shaped to fit her body like a second skin. "What is our status?" 37 crew members dead, 92 wounded, hull integrity at 63%. 2 engines destroyed, 1 damaged. We can make it home, but it will not be a comfortable trip. 37 dead. 37 names she would have to learn, 37 families she would have to notify, 37 faces that would visit her dreams for the rest of her life. The price of bringing 1 soldier home. Worth it. Always worth it. "Captain," the communications officer called out. "Incoming transmission. It is from the Zorvani flagship." Morgan raised an eyebrow. "Put it through." General Keth Varn appeared on the display. He looked different than before. The arrogance was gone. The contempt had faded. In its place was something that might have been respect. "Captain Morgan," he said, "I have commanded the Zorvani military for over 100 cycles. I have conquered worlds beyond counting. I believed there was nothing in this universe that could challenge our power." "You were wrong," Morgan said simply. "Yes, I was wrong." The general paused, gathering his thoughts. "Your species is weak individually. You have no armor, no natural weapons, no biological advantages. And yet you defeated my fleet for 1 wounded soldier. 1 ordinary human with no special rank or value." "Every human has value," Morgan said. "That is what you failed to understand." Keth Varn was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was thoughtful. "I will return to my empire. I will tell them what happened here. Some will want revenge. Some will see your species as a threat that must be destroyed before you grow stronger. Let them come." Morgan leaned forward slightly. "Let anyone come who thinks they can harm our people. We will do to them what we did to you today, and we will not stop. We will never stop. We will chase them across galaxies. We will fight them for generations. We will never forget, and we will never forgive." The general nodded slowly. I believe you. That is why I will tell my superiors the truth, that humanity is not a species to be conquered. You are a species to be avoided, perhaps in time, to be respected. The transmission ended. The display went dark. Morgan sat in silence for a long moment, looking at the stars. Blake moved to stand beside her. What are you thinking, Captain? I'm thinking about Private Grant, she said. 23 years old, a kid from Texas. He held out alone for 4 days. He killed 17 enemy soldiers despite being wounded and starving. He never broke. He never gave up. Sounds human to me, Blake said with a small smile. It does, doesn't it? Morgan stood from her chair. Set course for Earth, Commander. Best speed. We have a soldier to bring home to his family. The USS Relentless turned away from the battlefield. Behind her, the debris of 93 enemy ships floated silently in the void. A monument to the cost of underestimating humanity. A warning to any who might make the same mistake. And in the medical bay, a young man from Austin slept peacefully for the first time in days. His wound was healing. His body was recovering. His nightmares would come later, as they always did for soldiers. But for now, he was safe. He was among his people. He was home. Outside the ship, the stars stretched on forever. Billions of worlds, billions of species, billions of stories waiting to be written. And somewhere among those stars, word was spreading. The Zorvani were telling their story. The Coalition was updating their files. Empires and civilizations were learning a simple truth. Humans were small. Humans were soft. Humans were weak. But humans never left their own behind. And that made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy.